Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Jernigan, also known as Phrancko, and this is the weekly meeting of the Phrancko Sweater Knitters. If you're a Phrancko Sweater knitter, or you're interested in knitting a Phrancko sweater, or if you're just a knitter who'd like to hang out with us, please come join us. We're an open group. So welcome, everyone. Hi, Mary.
No.
Hi, Joellen.
Hola, hombre.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Sumner.
Hey,
Hi, Ron and Tim
hello.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
He's not behind you. Hi, Will.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we're
Oh, good.
everybody just fine. We're doing well. How
Awesome.
are you all?
Pretty good.
I'm good.
No complaints.
Oh, I got plenty of those. Well, I
Yeah, I didn't know that I was going to go quite that far, Will.
Yep.
All right, it's a little too hot. And I have too much
Hot.
housework to do.
It's been raining and raining here.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. It's like in the mornings it's been like 43. I'm like, my cucumbers are just going to melt. They're not going to make it if it doesn't get warmer.
Well, I don't know about Washington, but San Francisco is expecting a cooling this weekend.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
We're
the West
expecting-
Coast down here in California.
We're
Not just San
expecting
Francisco.
water.
Oh, are you? Oh, more water.
More water. It's just like, no. The other day it was like 80%, and somebody said that, oh, that's an 80% chance of rain. It's like, no, it means it's going to rain 80% of the time. That's what it means.
So I missed last week. I had cut my finger pretty badly.
Oh, no.
Oh no, what did you do?
Oh yeah, I had rubber gloves on and I dropped a knife and it sliced
Yep.
my middle finger. So I haven't been able to really knit for
Oh, no.
a couple of weeks. And of course, boot camp started this week. I was so mad at myself.
Oh, no.
I had 6 stitches and
Oh,
I just got them out on Thursday morning
Mhm.
of boot camp.
Oh,
Well, that's a very small cast on.
Yes.
6 stitches.
But yes, I had, and so finally I'm like doing better and it's doing good and I'm knitting and I've got all this like craziness. I'm driving myself mental. I need to stop. It's literally just 2 swatches. And you need like a garter stitch swatch in knit and a garter stitch swatch in purl.
And
So they
pearl,
can
yeah.
compare them for the gauge.
Mhm.
So I've done them in English, in continental, in Norwegian, and now I'm settling on what one I think is best. And
Oh, you overachiever.
I'm like,
I'm telling
my
you.
God, I am making this way too
Listen who's
complicated.
talking, Cindy.
Talking. So I've been driving myself nuts, and it's over 2 swatches. Yeah, there you go.
Sumner, how different is the gauge with each swatch? Are they
It's
probably
amazing.
pretty close? Really?
It's no, it's amazing. So there's not a really good way to show. So this is my Norwegian knit swatch,
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
and then this is my picking, which so
Oh, my.
there's not
Yes.
too much, but it's much tighter.
Yes.
So
Oh.
it's
Yes.
right, so it's tighter.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Norwegian purling, I'm still way too loose. So I'm leaving that. It's Norwegian purling is just way too loose.
So it's a
Okay.
lot different. Yeah.
It's a lot different. So I'm gonna, because I wanted to pick a method that I would be able to do throughout the entire boot camp. So
Right.
I'm gonna do the picking that I've done for decades,
That's
Right.
probably a good idea.
Yeah.
you know, and then
Because you really want to match set, right? That's what you're going for. Oh, I'm so bad to tease you.
I have to have a match set.
Well, it's for mine. I went into it thinking it's like, oh, mine is the same. I'm fine, and I did it, and it was like,
No.
no,
No, not even close.
My
Well, whoever
stitch
does
gauge
this.
and my stitch gauge and my pearl gauge my stitch gauge and my row gauge were both different for pearl than they were for knits when I first started.
Yeah, but whoever
I'm like,
does like a test
weird.
where you do a garter stitch, cast on 20 stitches for 30 rows
Right.
in knit and then in pearl and then compares them. I've
Right.
never done
Yeah.
that in my lifetime.
Well, see,
Why
that was
would
one
you?
of the ones that I did for Binka Schwann's Taming Tension class too, because that is how it shows to differentiate, because people are, and I didn't know, it's like, are my pearls bigger or my knits bigger? It's like, I know it was a little wonky when I did stockinette, but which one was it? And by doing those
Right.
two swatches like that, that's how you can
You learn a
tell.
lot.
You
Yeah.
really learn a lot about, and
Yeah.
I'm like, garter? I know how to do garter. And it's like, no, I don't.
No, I don't. Yeah,
So you do garter stitch all knits, and then you do garter stitch all pearls.
correct.
And then you
exactly.
can, and the same
And
number of
it's
rows, and then you
and the
can
same
see
number of
which
rows.
one is
Mhm.
taking more stitches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
mean,
number of
or
rows,
more
same number
yarn.
of stitches.
Same
Well,
number,
it's not,
more yarn. One takes more yarn.
yeah. And on one of mine, after I started getting better, it was like I got the stitches about the same, but the row gauge was still a little bit different.
Yeah,
And
what's with the
so,
row gauge? I'm like,
well,
are you
then
kidding me?
that's those things of where you have like kind of row gutters in your thing, and so you have, one row is little and one row is big and one row is little, one row is big, and it's like, oh, that's what that is. And so,
Yes.
but until you actually know, you don't know which one you should be even changing.
Well, right.
And,
So you knit for
or
30
even
years
trying
and-
to change. Mhm.
Yeah, you knit for 30 years and then you learn how to knit.
That's exactly it.
And
So, Sonia,
swear.
how big is this swatch you have to do? 20 by 30, 20 stitches by 30 rows. Is that what you have
Yeah,
to do?
yeah.
Yeah.
So 4 by 4 inches or 10 by 10 centimeters, whatever your poison.
Right.
But yeah,
Well, but what you are doing, the important thing is that you're doing exactly the same number of stitches and
Of
rows,
stitches and
both
rows, yeah.
working it both ways. Yeah. Mhm. So you really do get an accurate comparison of what is this one? What is this one? Oh, this one's bigger. That's weird.
I
And
can
what,
see where this would make me more comfortable with taking the masters when this
You'll
is done.
find that much of the material is similar.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
what
And she
weight,
taught
what
this in
weight wool is
college.
it? What weight
It's
wool are you doing it on?
Cascade 220, but the actual 220. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
DK.
DK.
No, it's
Yeah.
worsted.
Worst
It's worsted weight.
Worsted,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
worsted on 4.5 millimeter sevens.
Because
No
you're
estimate.
looking to get a stitch gauge of between 16 and 20 stitches in 4 inches.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Crazy. Who would have thought? But
I'm
fun.
glad you're enjoying it and learning
Uh,
something.
Yes. And I've got yarn everywhere, which that's no different. But
Yeah, of course.
So
That's
what
great.
day
I'm
is
glad you're
boot
doing
camp?
it.
I don't want to bring up a sore subject if it is one, but Ron, didn't you tell us you were starting the Master Hand Knitting program?
I had done level 1 years ago at this point.
Oh, for some reason
but-
I thought recently you said you were doing it but maybe
No.
I got that wrong.
No, not recently. And
Oh,
then I
okay.
just decided to spend my time elsewhere for the time being, I guess.
Well, you
There's
just
plenty of other
did the-
places to spend your time in knitting.
Yeah.
You just did the design one though.
Yes,
right?
yeah, I did the first level of
Yes.
that as well. And I intend to continue with that. I've just been waiting for the theater to reopen, and it has. So
Hmm.
I'm getting my class schedule up, and then I intend to get back into that. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that will be more helpful to me because practical like design work rather than like knitting tasks. The knitting information is out there. I've got a library.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, and I was gonna ask Cindy, because I know you've been through it, and I don't want to take up the whole meeting with it, because I really do appreciate all your opinions. Like truly, I really do. Why would my row gauge be different is where I'm figuring out, like, my stitch gauge is the same on my garter and my purl, on my knit and my purl on garter. My stitch gauge is the same. My row gauge is different.
The size of the stitches, the individual width of the stitches and the rows in which your tension is tighter are going to by necessity determine or act as a limiter to the width of stitches in the rows that have looser tension. So because their width is limited by the smaller width of the stitches that they're attached to coming out of and going into on alternate rows, the excess tension has to go somewhere. So the looseness of the yarn then settles between the stitches because though the space in between rows isn't limited by the tension in the rows above and below. So if you were able to individually stretch out every other row, you could make the stitch gauge be different, but they're going to be limited by the width of the stitches in the more tense row and form into gutters rather than stitches that elongate and shrink and elongate and shrink and elongate and shrink.
Mhm.
But it's a taller swatch.
Yeah, because the extra stitch.
Well, but he's talking about where he's just
in the
doing
garter
like
stitch.
all purl or
In
all
this
knit.
case, the limit
garter.
of the stitch width is going to be determined by the grist of the yarn itself.
Mhm.
If the yarn is grippy and is under tension, if the swatch has been blocked, there's only going to be room for so many, like the 2 strands of yarn are going to hold themselves into the width of 2 strands of yarn being bracketed by 2 strands of yarn. And that's going to be a fixed width based on the grist of the yarn itself. 4 strands of yarn, unless you begin to stretch it like that,
Okay.
are the width of
That
4 strands of yarn. But
Yeah.
the extra tension again can settle between.
That makes
So,
sense.
You're getting a gauge that is more or less modulated by the grist of the yarn you're using, rather than the needles that you're using.
So making a tighter stitch should shrink my row.
So, like
Width.
what I'm knitting here, is a DK weight yarn on very very big needles.
Big needles, and so it's got a lot of space.
So there's a lot of space between rows,
Mhm.
and I can stretch it out and make it wider, but underweight. Like when it's worn as a garment, when it's blocked, so the stitches look nice and even, the stitches are going to be longer than an equivalent stitch gauge knit at a tighter tension. Which is why you often dress swatches and add weight to them when you're making a fabric like this. This is a ranunculus, by the way, which
Yeah.
calls for a
I like
lightweight
that.
yarn on a size 10 needle.
It's a
Yeah.
what? Redunculus?
Ranunculus.
Ranunculus. What is that?
It's a pullover. It's an oversized sort of lacy pullover. It's been hanging out on the trending right now top page of Ravelry for about 4 years. And so I'm looking for maybe 2 years. I don't know how old it is.
Yeah,
The
we'll
last
go
It's been a
edition was
while.
2 years ago. So
It's been a while.
it's because I'm looking for some popular thing because people have been asking for like project classes. So I'm trying to knit one of these up to see. But
Isn't Judith making one not too long ago?
I think
that
she
sounds
has.
familiar to me.
I think she was. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it
I
was.
do.
right?
I think she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're
I have
not
a
allowed to.
question. I have a question
What?
for you, Sami.
Yeah.
When you do you ever do swatches where you, let's see, knit garter stitch for a certain number of rows, say 4 rows. Then you purl for 4 rows and you cut the yarn and unravel it and then compare the lengths of the yarn. Have you
I've
ever
never
done
done
that?
No.
See, that would really determine whether your stitches are the same size, and it wouldn't matter whether they were different in height or width. It would just say, I'm using more yarn when I purl than when I knit, and therefore it's not the same gauge. It really doesn't matter whether the row gauge is off or the stitch gauge is off as to whether your purls are bigger or smaller than your knits. If they're not the same, if either one of them is not the same, then your gauges aren't matched.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so that's a way you could find out by just measuring the length of the yarn that it takes to knit a certain number of rows or purl a certain number of rows. The other thing I thought of while you were talking about this, since we're talking about garter stitch swatches, garter stitch is very stretchy vertically. And so it's really hard to get a really accurate row gauge for garter stitch.
Right.
One
I
of your
found that.
swatches may have just stretched more than the other vertically because garter stretches vertically very, very much.
And has a
Yeah.
lower Poisson number than regular knitting.
Yeah. It's
But the
neat.
experiment I just described would not depend on how stretched it is, because when you measure the yarn, it's not stitches anymore. So they're not being stretched out.
Right.
And Sumner, you'll do that experiment later on in boot camp.
Oh,
Yeah. I was thinking we maybe will. Yeah. I'm thinking.
hey.
Hey, Judith.
Hi, Judith.
Hi,
Bonsoir.
everyone.
I'm glad you
just
could make
came-
it. Yes.
Well, I'm at my sister's again, so
Ah.
I just
Yay.
came to say a little cuckoo, hi,
Hi.
Hi, Judith.
and chat about 5 minutes before we sit down for supper.
Well, good. Thank you.
Everyone's okay.
Sounds like it.
I think
Forget
so.
me.
The only person with complaints is Will.
Well, so I'll have to watch the episodes.
It wasn't Will. It was
That was a
me. I
joke.
got my
Will's
finger.
fine.
Yeah, Will was the one that was saying he was wonderful. And we're like, really?
Yeah.
Why?
And Tim, you weren't in the room when I was greeting people. So greetings, Tim. Hi.
Hi,
Thank
Tim.
you.
Hi, Tim. Judith, I watched last week's where you were asking about the cast on stuff. And then I actually even did this funny little sample where I cast on an example with 2 different, let's see if I can hold it up so you can see it, with 2 different colors of yarn. And the blue yarn, this is just the first thing, the blue yarn is actually the ball yarn and the yellow yarn is the thumb yarn. And so you can see when you do a long tail cast on that your thumb yarn only does this little bottom part on
Yes,
the
indeed.
thing, that the other one does the stitch. And I always thought that was really interesting. So using a bigger needle or 2 needles or stuff like that, it just makes that first stitch big. It doesn't change your actually stitch gauge for the cast on. It doesn't really increase that. That is by how far away and how close together when you're putting them on. Yeah, how you tighten up. So anyway, I thought that would be a
Yeah, the yellow yarn.
demonstration.
The yellow yarn is determining the row gauge.
Right, exactly.
The blue yarn there is determining, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. The
No,
yellow
you did.
yarn is determining the stitch gauge,
Stitch
Gauge.
how far apart
Mhm.
the stitches are.
Right,
The blue yarn is determining the row gauge of the first row.
right.
So when people suggest using 2 needles you're just wrapping the blue yarn around the 2 needles, and
Mhm.
they're
Yeah,
still
it
the
doesn't-
same row gauge.
Still is the same
It's
row
not
gauge.
spreading out the row. It's making that first row bigger, higher, taller.
Mhm.
And that doesn't even actually look very good if you then switch to.
Yeah, if you've done it. So
Mm.
anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Yes, there's so much to try and
There really is.
Mhm.
It's insane.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it is a
Uh,
lot.
I find that it's that I have a challenge to use the same word I used last week to keep my tension even when I'm using linen cotton blend yarn.
Mhm.
Oh,
I have
Absolutely.
the same problem.
Yes, I wish there was a tool that could measure the tension, the tension while your thread, your yarn is, sliding through your finger just to, but you only see it a few rows below until you knit a few rows that you can see, that's working or it's not working.
Mhm.
Right.
And I
I
think it is just because of the nature of the fiber that
Oh.
it doesn't have that spring and pullback that we're so used to with all the wool.
And-
It's a different beast.
Yeah, and I don't have strong, how do you say, the forearms, forearm.
Yeah.
So it might sound, I don't know, ridiculous, but I think it might make a difference if I have maybe not weak fingers, but not as strong. Phrancko or any of you, Frank or any of you, maybe it does make a difference. I don't know, and I have to acquire that skill or that strength with the year to, and the experience of feeling that I have the right tension every time I go back to my work and do a few more rows.
Yeah.
Well,
Knitting
when I
cotton
get there,
can
I'll
make
let
you
you know.
tired.
But I'm years away from that.
Yeah.
And you've been knitting a while.
A long time, yeah. And it's like, no, it's not. It isn't. The most that's helped me is knitting on the tips of the needles, and even the
Yes.
same thing of the casting on the tips, and then using the needle itself. Actually, the barrel of the needle to size the stitch.
Yeah.
That doing that to
Yeah.
size the stitch rather than
I-
any other way.
I agree. It makes a difference.
But you shouldn't have to be pulling hard. It shouldn't be a lot of stress. It's more, can it be even? It can be very light, but it just has to be even. That's what you're
Yes.
looking
If
for.
even if it's even if it's even, if I don't break I could, hold a bit the yarn between my fingers. If it only flows through my fingers, it's too loose. I will never get gauge. I will have to work on quadruple zero needle.
Okay, Jenny, that's your cue.
What Cindy just said was the secret that solved my tension problems too. And it was a long time before anybody really made it clear to me that the sizing of the stitch should only happen at the very end of working the knit stitch. It doesn't happen when you wrap the needle. And I thought that wrapping the needle was, I would stick the needle all the way through and then wrap the barrel of the needle, and thinking that was measuring the yarn when I wrapped it. But there's so much that gets manipulated after that gets all distorted. But if you knit only on the tips of the needles before they're anywhere in the tapered end, tapered
Yes.
tip, anywhere in the tapered tip, so that there's less yarn wrapped around than is actually required for the stitch. When you then push the needle through the stitch the final time, it goes down onto the barrel and sizes it, and then you're done. So
Yes.
that was the secret for me. Other people have other problems and other solutions. So there's so many things to help with tension. That's why Binka Schwann's course is so essential for people. By the way, Binka Schwann's course, for anybody who doesn't know, is Taming Tensions, and it's available if you're a member of tkga.org. So if you're having tension, anybody in the world who sees this, who's having tension problems, go sign up for tkga.org and take Binka Schwann's Taming Tensions course.
Then you have to be mindful that different needles have different lengths of tapers on the end. So
Yes.
if you're used to one with a long taper, you could be working further down the needle, and then you get one with a very short taper, and you just undo all the work you've learnt. Yeah.
That's right. You have to learn
Yeah.
all over again.
Yep.
Then there's the tension of everyday living that's the course that I need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
If
the
you're
course help
angry,
with
you go,
that?
"Arr, arr, arr."
Yeah.
You got that angry knitting. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the secret.
I have loads of kids in the house, and I'll catch myself just calm down. You're the grandmother. You don't have to train. Shut up. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I like knitting. You stab, you strangle. You stab, you strangle. You stab, you strangle.
Yep.
And there's something to be said for looking up from your knitting like this.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I
Yes.
love your philosophy. Oh, heavens.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a phone that.
That's why I'll
Yeah.
bring my knittings to meetings, even if I don't want to work on
Oh.
anything. Because
Tell them we said hi, Judith.
Say hi, hello.
Yeah, you gotta tell the kids, Mime's stitches are getting tight. Watch out.
What the?
And then there's alcohol tension. That's different to every
Yeah.
other tension.
I can't hang up. I'm gonna stay. I cannot hang up.
Well, for mine, it's music. I cannot listen to music in that at all because
Really?
it depends on what it is. If it's something like da 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 da, da, the knitting is just going like this, and the tension looks one way. And if it's something really kind of relaxing, then the knitting is a little more loosey goosey.
Mine's horror movies. Yeah.
Oh no, I can't do that. No, you do not
No.
watch those or detective shows. I can't do any of that. It's bad.
I've got a special
It
playlist
totally changes.
on Spotify of music to listen to while I'm knitting to knit at an even clip, and it's all a curated playlist of songs I like between 125 and 135 BPM, because that is the rate at which I knit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's the
Yes.
equivalent of joggers then, who have that for when they're out running to keep the pace.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
I'm just like
Little
my
flight of the
125 BPM
bumblebee.
knitting music.
That's really fast, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to watch all the murder and mayhem series that are on and knit. And I looked down just I think yesterday or the day before, and in the middle of my little stockinette, all of a sudden I started going pearl on my knit side.
On the wrong
And
side.
I went for about that far, and then right back to normal. And then by the time I turned around and got back over there, here must have been when they found the killer. I guess I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
That's yeah.
Like counting the
Yeah.
rings of a tree.
And,
when I was
Ron, another question from last week. What was that yarn that you were using for that pink hat that you did with the dithered pattern? It
Oh,
was some sort of cashmere, but what was it?
this is Serenity from Anzula.
Okay. I knew you said it was cashmere, but I couldn't figure out what kind.
Oh,
Beautiful.
that's
I'm writing that
And
down.
you're reading a little skein of Serenity. Yeah, I'll show you the label. I
What's
keep
the
it just
gauge
to
on it?
touch it.
It looks gorgeous. What's the gauge on it?
Oh, that's
The
beautiful.
hat itself, I don't know.
No, I
Oh,
can't read
that's
it, but
beautiful
yeah,
finger.
but I can see that it's Anzula.
Serenity,
Oh,
That's
good.
beautiful.
That's beautiful. It is.
and it's incredibly soft. It's a fingering weight yarn.
And so a hat took 2 skeins, right?
Yeah, here, weigh this. Less than. There are
Okay.
2 little balls of half-finished cashmere laying over there.
56 grams.
So it took 6 grams over 50 grams. So
Okay.
if it weren't stranded knit, you could get a hat out of 1.
Right.
Even though it is stranded knit, you could almost get 2 hats out of it. It's just in my size, 56 grams of yarn.
Is not quite enough.
Not quite.
Well, 50 would not be quite enough, but it might be for some of the rest of us.
I wear a 7 3/4, so I got a big old head.
It's the same as me.
Then you also have a big old head.
Oh, yeah, like a bowling ball. Yeah, not candle pin.
Thank you. I wanted to ask.
Yeah,
Mhm.
not candle pin.
Well, let's show our work, and I will start by showing you. I'm basically done with my little bear,
Oh,
Oh.
yes. All right.
as much as I'm gonna do anyway.
Oh, he's got sleeves.
Oh.
Yay.
Oh,
How
that's
cute.
adorable.
Like the
He's got
jumper.
little pants and a jacket with a turtleneck and cuffs on the jacket and a hat.
A little hat. Yeah.
And
Very cute.
he also could have shoes, but I'm done.
He has bare feet.
Right.
I just thought this is fine. It's all I need to do.
Yeah.
Now I'll move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
He's a bear. He can be barefoot.
Yes.
Yes,
He's a bear. He can be barefoot. Yes.
he can be bare everywhere.
Oh, I don't think that'd be good. No.
So who else wants to show what they've been doing?
Where's Judith gone?
I know, she finally got out.
Before I
Our
had
lead
an
shower.
accident, I was finishing the second of my socks. I gotta take off that background.
Now we can see it.
Yeah.
Well, we can see one.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I had to
cubby
take
toe.
off the background. But yeah, before I cut myself, that's where I got.
Oh,
So I'm almost done. Almost done.
And those are on the little zeros.
Those were on the little zeros, Ginny.
Yeah.
Now, I love them. It really is. It's the best advice. I just love it.
So I'm also doing socks as well. Just hold one up. So there you go. They've got like a
Oh,
That's a pretty
yes.
pattern.
Oh,
I
I
like
love
that.
it.
Oh,
lace
Very
pattern.
nice.
Yeah.
very nice.
So this is a free pattern on Ravelry. Trying to think what it's called. Hold on, so I can find the name of it. They are called Let It Shine Socks by Sarah Youde, Youde. And it's a free Ravelry pattern. Very nice.
very
My
nice.
size,
Um,
that is in my size, right?
Oh, definitely for you. Yeah.
Thank
yes,
you,
yes.
thank you, just making sure.
Yeah, they'll be in the post. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll-
without the blur.
Yes, just a minute.
Oh,
Just,
good.
Much nicer. Yes, lovely.
Yes. I love the
And
colors.
so-
They're wonderful.
I like the colors too. And so which heels are those?
That's cat 40, and I love
Okay.
that they completely match.
For the heels, yeah. Oh,
Tough to know.
wow.
Very
So
good.
are you
Yeah.
counting every row when you change?
No, it changes automatically. So
Oh, so
what
it
I
is
do
a
with that,
self-striping yarn, but you matched it up where you started.
I match where I start and I put a slip
Okay.
knot in the second ball so that I know that I'm starting at the exact same spot.
Okay.
And that's always been a good way for me to not worry about it.
How do you mean you put a slip knot? That I'm not
So
following you.
on two smaller socks, so it's not one big skein, right?
Okay.
So it's two individual skeins, one for each sock. So I just make sure that my starting point is on the color. And then I'll use the long tail cast on method so that the thumb color is my first round, but my first color starts on the lead yarn from the ball.
I see.
So the second ball, I just look to where that color starts and I put a slip knot so that that's where I'm going to cast on for the second sock. And then they're the same always, and it's good.
All the way through,
Oh,
yeah.
that makes sense.
They're the same all the way through, and you don't have to worry about it. Because that's how much I hate toe up socks.
Although you could do the same thing with toe up, right? You
You could,
just
yeah,
wouldn't be doing the long tail cast on.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I've done it and I've always been off just a little bit, enough to make me like go, oh, I wish I didn't do that. So
Oh, by the time you get to the upper part of the sock, which you show, it might have gotten a little out of sync.
yeah, right. It gets
See.
out of sync. So like when you're doing a traditional heel flap, you can start the heel flap at the same color change.
Right.
So that's easy, right? Just start the heel flap at a color change. Who's measuring my sock? No one. You know, so I just start the heel flap with the color change, and then it's always the same throughout.
And what kind of yarn are you using for those?
That one's Knit Picks.
Say again?
Knit Picks.
Oh, Knit Picks what?
Yeah, just their cheap sock yarn. It's nothing fancy. I forget. I got so much. It's a lot of. It's just Knit Picks.
I see.
When you said nobody's measuring your socks, I envisioned a sock measurer running up and pulling out the tape measure on anybody walking by.
Right. Well, you're doing a pattern. It always says, "Oh, knit this for so many inches." I don't care. I'm gonna try it on. You know, and
Right.
I know what I want.
Well, I have something to show if you wish.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I am making a Phrancko top down. And it is a V-neck. I have not put it together yet. I don't know.
But you're close.
I'm getting close. With the help of all my buddies, worked out a process of reading all these do this and that on the when you can and over here, and it works well.
At the same
Happy.
time.
At the same time. I can't even chew and walk at the same time, but I figured this out. I'm very happy with it.
I'm glad you were
Looking
able to
good.
do that.
Me too.
Tell us about the yarn you're using.
The yarn is that Erin Moore light that Kathy's been using a lot of, and the color is Copper Cove.
Oh,
So it's kind of a brown and gosh, I don't know what you would call it, and a reddish kind of color to it, a rust.
Russet.
Yeah.
It really matches the color of the chair that you're sitting in.
Yes.
Mhm. It does.
Very
It
nice.
does. Yes,
It
it does.
does.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just blend right in here when I wear
You'll
it.
just disappear if you sit in that chair with it.
But I like it. I love the feel. I like the way it looks. Kind of covers up my mistakes very well.
Well, that's ideal.
The
Yep,
best
I like
kind
it.
of yarn.
Yep.
It's got that little bit of tweediness in it, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's got little specks of like emerald and a little canary yellow pop up every now and then, a little coral,
Oh, I love
pretty
that.
little flakes in there.
Well, I started a fan and feather a scarf, but it takes effort to think. And I don't have the effort to think when I'm listening to all the funnies on our Zoom. So I'm doing still knitting for charity.
Cool.
Brilliant.
I ran into a friend of mine who's knitting for charity, doing a similar thing. Knitting the squares that they put together for blankets.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And it's just garters, so you don't have to think.
I don't know about that.
That's right. Your first comments to that.
I am full of garter stitch swatches. I could knit a blanket over here.
Take the opportunity to make one in reverse garter stitch and then compare.
Yeah. So funny.
Well, I will say if you do a bunch of garter in pearl, I did it when I did a little baby sweater because I felt like I needed to practice purling, and so I did it all in pearl for the garter stitch baby sweater, and my pearl got a lot better. So,
And then
you
you're a
maybe you should.
continental knitter, right?
I don't even know what that means. I throw. Is that continental? It's
throw?
always seemed funny. It's like continental. Which continent are you talking about? I mean, it's
The
like, what is this?
The one with the breakfast.
That still doesn't clear it up for me, Ron, because I make biscuits and bacon and eggs.
The one with
Yeah.
croissants and a little yogurt.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like croissants. I could live without the yogurt, but the croissants are good.
So you
Well-
throw, you knit with your right hand?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
I'm left-handed, so I throw. Yeah, that was the way I learned.
Well, I do know that continental is picking, but
Oh, is
what's
that
the
what it is? Okay.
alternative? Yes, so you're not doing continental. The alternative is what? British, American,
English.
It's often called
English?
English.
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 Okay.
There are lots of right-handed tensioning methods that all just get kind of lumped together.
Yeah. I'm a
So-
flicker, they call it.
So what do you do, Jenny? Because you actually are English.
Yes.
Do you pick? Do you throw? Do you
I'm a
continental?
continental knitter, yes. I'm an
Oh, so,
I'm an English
okay, so-
person, but I'm a
So see, that's
continental
what
knitter.
confuses me. Jenny is English and she doesn't do English knitting.
I used to knit English throwing style, but I ended up, it hurt my shoulder because I
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
flick the yarn. So I was dropping and picking and doing that.
Dropping and picking it, doing too much.
Yeah. So I taught myself about 3 or 4 years ago. I taught myself over 3 months to knit continental. So
Do you have a cafe croissant for breakfast? No beans on toast as well?
oh, beans on toast, definitely. Not the
Okay. No continental breakfast, just the knitting.
Yes, I love beans on toast.
Yeah.
That and bangers and mash for dinner. Mm,
Yeah.
too much.
You know, maybe we should put together a Phrancko recipe book.
It's-
Ah,
That would be fun.
With a sweater you can knit while you make your favorite.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I can
Well, I'm
cook,
up in the northeast.
I can cook a grilled cheese sandwich. Will that go in the recipe book?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it should. Grilled cheese is good.
Yeah.
Grilled
Yeah.
cheese and tomato soup. What's not to like?
You can call it a pangli. Yeah, there's a
So
Yeah,
do you,
yeah, Panclier, croque
by
monsieur.
grilled cheese sandwich, do you mean is it bread and then
A
cheese
cheese
and then
toasty.
bread?
Yes.
Yes.
And then it's
Oh, okay.
grilled in butter.
Mhm.
I mean, you put it in a pan and you toast each side in butter, and the cheese melts, and it becomes a gooey mess between two pieces of butter
It's so
toast.
good, Jenny.
Ah,
So it's like the French croque monsieur then.
Right, it's a croque
Similar.
monsieur sans the ham and
Yeah, the ham.
no cheese on top.
And no cheese on top. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, it's like a croque monsieur.
Do you have something you referred to as a cheese toasty?
So we do cheese on toast rather than a cheese toasty. So it is just one slice of bread, cheese
The
on
cheese.
top, and then under the, what do you call it? Do you call it a broiler? Or something?
Broiler,
Yeah,
yes.
broiler.
A grill, yes, under the grill, yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yes.
loved
And we
when I
would
was
we would
there.
call that an open face sandwich.
An open face
Yeah.
sandwich, okay.
That's what
I
we
love
call
the
it.
plowboy sandwich, which is an Irish sandwich, and it's cheddar cheese and onion jam.
Mm.
Oh my goodness!
Ooh.
Good.
Wow, is that good?
Yep. Sounds good.
and what kind of bread is it on?
It Irish bread.
Crusty,
Toast.
either soda bread
So is
or,
the jam,
yeah.
is the onion
Toasted.
jam sweet? Does it have sugar or is it just
Uh,
like
it's-
caramelized onions?
But sweet because it's caramelized onions mostly. I mean, it's
Okay.
different for everybody who makes it, but they can be pretty sweet. But with the cheddar cheese to cut through it and the salts, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
too good.
Well, thank you very much. I'm starving to death now. I really appreciate all this. Fading away.
I was
I'm getting
thinking
dinner ideas.
for my
Boy.
American kids here, does anyone eat American chop suey? I think that's a
I
northeastern
don't even
thing.
know what that is.
I don't know. what
I
it
think
is.
I don't even know
Chinese
what it
restaurants
is.
are a little different on the West Coast.
No, it's not Chinese. It's American. It's
Yeah, it's
elbow
a
macaroni with
What, sorry,
ground beef.
macaroni?
Yeah, elbow macaroni with tomato sauce, grilled
Maybe a little bit of onion.
onion, green pepper, and
Oh, okay.
paprika with oregano.
Okay, now my mom makes that, and she
Yeah.
was originally from Nebraska, and she called it Dago. And
Uh-oh.
I don't know what that means or what.
It's a derogatory term for Italians.
I figured it probably was, but I didn't know. They lived way
Yeah.
out in the sticks, in
Yeah,
a town
yeah.
that is no more
Yeah.
from like 1930.
Sounds like something that my grandparents would have referred to as goulash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Hungarian.
If you're
my-
from New York, it's goulash.
No, goulash is spicy. Hungarian goulash is,
Yes,
It
there's
is.
goulash, and then there's this pasta stuff they call goulash.
oh, really?
So is,
Yeah.
isn't it kind of just like hamburger helper?
Is it like a bolognese sauce?
Yeah, the real goulash is like bolognese, but spicy.
Like a bolognese, right, okay.
And if
yeah.
you added macaroni,
Instead
elbow,
of spaghetti, yes. right.
that's American chop suey.
Oh, okay, right.
How
So when
strange.
we do the Frank's cookbook, we need to put everybody's version of macaroni and tomato sauce and onions and doorbell peppers with paprika
Yeah,
without.
Hamburger.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my response to American chop suey is, you mean chop suey? I've never.
No, I've never heard that.
Never heard.
No.
And we eat chop suey sandwiches here in the Northeast on the ocean, which is actual chop suey from like a Chinese restaurant in between toasted bread.
Oh,
I've never heard of that either.
no.
That
I
is a
haven't
That's
either.
very
wrong.
New England thing.
That is wrong.
I do
that's
not
just
eat
wrong.
it. I do not eat it, but it is a very popular thing on the seaside here.
I think the consensus is that's not going in our cookbook.
No.
No, not in mine either.
Yakisoba hot dog. Yakisoba on a hot dog bun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yakisoba is just good, period.
I'm having Louisiana shrimp po' boy for dinner.
Oh, that's pretty
Ooh.
good.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
very good, Mary.
I'm not cooking it, you understand.
No, but you're eating it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I hate to divert this delicious conversation, but I would love to see the socks you've been working on for weeks. Have you
Okay.
finished them?
They're done, except I haven't woven the ends in. But the socks are done.
Those are
Oh,
gorgeous.
yay.
Wow.
That's lovely.
Unbelievable.
Oh, they are
That is just amazing.
fantastic.
So I'm glad to be done with them. They were lots of fun, but it's time for them
Yeah.
to be over.
A lot of
And
work, too.
so there was a lot of work, but it was, I mean, I really love the pattern. And I will knit this pattern again, sure.
It
With
is
different
beautiful.
different colors.
There's something
So-
called a peacock eye or peacock's tail. It almost looks like that pattern.
Oh, the
Is that-
colors do. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I don't know, maybe I don't not remembering it correctly.
No,
Excuse
you
me,
are.
Will, go ahead and finish.
Well, once I finish these, I needed a new project. The only other project I have on the needles right now, I think, is a big knitted Afghan, and it's like 95 degrees outside here, so I'm not really in the mood to knit an Afghan. So I started another sweater, and this is
Oh, my
the
goodness.
beginning of it, and it's the Any Day sweatshirt. I think that's what it's called, Any Day sweatshirt by Isolde Teague. Any Day sweatshirt by Isolde Teague, and I've knit one once before, and so this is the second time I'm doing this one. And the yarn is Brooklyn Tweed Loft, the one that I was having so much trouble with the gauge a couple of weeks ago. But
Yeah.
I think I think it's working.
Looks like it. Looks real nice.
Thanks.
It
I
does.
say that now. We'll see what I say in a couple more weeks.
You made good progress, though.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Tim's putting sleeves on.
Ooh, yay.
On a sweater.
Yeah, finally, the one that I started, a year and a half ago?
Oh,
It's been sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
You may remember he has to
Steek it.
yeah, the input on the site was wrong. So he's going to steek it and add a thick button band. Let me show you.
Yeah, it was my user error, not website error. So here's where I am on the sleeve.
oh yeah, coming along.
And here's the steek lines.
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
All right.
Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
very neat. Very nice.
Yeah.
I love the
Crocheted.
colors too.
Crocheted steeks.
Mhm. It's a
Okay.
non-superwash wool. Tim hand dyed it.
Oh.
And how are you doing the stripes?
That's just in the yarn.
Oh, really? Long color strips.
Very
Huh.
long stripes.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it pools a lot, so I decided to make it a planned pooling project. So all of the darks are purled and all of the light colors are knitted.
That's in reverse stockinette.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Visual and literal texture.
Very
And
nice.
I showed it earlier, but I'm knitting the ranunculus by
Yeah.
Midori Hirose.
Very pretty.
What
So-
a nice stitch.
Yeah.
Yoke starts with some slip stitch stuff.
Mhm.
That's what I'm
It's
working
pretty.
on now.
Very
So it's a
pretty.
very oversized, or was it Sidra? Did Sidra make one? Or Sidra was talking about? Because I think she was talking about it being oversized. She was talking about something being oversized and not wanting it that big. And it might have been this because it is the smallest size measures like 46 inches in the bust. Because it's meant to be worn with scads of positive ease. And then I made a little amigurumi this morning.
Want me to grab that?
I guess.
And Tim is laughing about it. So what is
Yeah.
the story behind that?
There's a show we've been watching, and there was a funny thing in it. So I crocheted one this morning because it's just funny.
What is it?
Yeah, what is it even?
It kind of looks like a bird.
It kind of looks like a bird.
Kind of.
It's there's an anime called Dungeon Meshi or Delicious in Dungeon, and these little red bird things that kind of remind me of hot link sausages showed up. It's like,
So you
I
made
bet I
one.
can crochet that. Inspiration struck. So now I'm back onto my sweater. I knew if I tried to fight it, I just wouldn't work on my sweater anyway. So it's not like I was going to save any time on getting my sweater done by not stopping to make the weird thing.
Because you were just going to be thinking about the weird thing the whole time.
Because I would have just been thinking about the weird thing the whole time.
That's funny.
So sometimes you have to get it out of your system.
I was wondering how to pronounce something, and I was like, well, I could ask. It'll be on the internet forever. Some stupid question of mine. So, mercerized or mercurized, cotton? What is that? I know what the process is. How do you pronounce it?
I always say mercerized.
It's mercerized.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mercer.
got it. There's a new mercerized cotton that's amigurumi.
Oh, yeah.
Because this amigurumi is so popular, it just comes in every single color. And
It does, yeah.
yeah.
And mercerized cottons are a popular use or a popular material for amigurumi.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and
Okay,
good for
now
wearing.
everybody knows what it is except me. So you can tell me what is mercerized cotton.
Mm.
when you take
It's cotton
cotton,
that's been treated by putting it under tension and then applying an alkaline substance to it.
right?
Chemically alters the cotton a bit, makes it lustrous and strong and shiny.
Kind of slick, yeah.
And there's another process called gassing, which creates a similar effect to mercerization. But if you look at like dishcloth cotton, which is like rough and slubby and not shiny at all, versus very shiny cotton yarns, they've usually been mercerized, put through this process of treating the cotton fibers so that they're shiny and strong.
Thank you.
Yeah. The
Yeah, a lot of times
mercerization
you'll see,
process makes it so that it holds dye better. And then after they're done with the alkaline process, they stop it by dipping it in acid. So it changes the pH very quickly, stops the mercerization process, and then they rinse it all the way through. And there's actually some environmentally friendly ways to do that. And then, of course, there's some really bad ways to do it, which they mostly have stopped. So there you go. There's that. Sorry.
interesting. I've been working on my level 2 resubmissions, and I'm getting very close to having everything done except for now I've still got to reknit the vest. But I did a big swatch, and so I'm ready for that. But I'm doing my funny little buttonhole stuff. I didn't have to reknit, but I'm having to rewrite one of the instructions. So I'm mucking with if I do it this way or this way or this way or this way. And so I've got it written 4 different ways, just very minor changes for which one is the best. And so that's what I'm working on. But I've got most of my checklist all checked off. So I'm getting there.
Good.
Well, you've got not just us, but a lot of people who are commenting are saying they can't wait to see you make progress on this program. So you're being encouraged by the whole.
Yeah. Well, it's really nice. It's been really got it back, I want to say May 6th. So it's not yet a month. I've worked on it pretty much every day. And like I said, I just got to finish the swatch information sheet for that one. And then I've got to redo that little bit of the ribbing around the neckline, that part of knitting, and then reknit the vest. So, and
Great.
here's the vest swatch. Ta-da! It's big. It's big.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Pretty.
Your gauge is going to be right on this time.
My gauge is going to be right on this time. That is exactly the truth.
Amen. Good
Well,
for
Do
you.
it's
not
time for us
budget.
to say goodbye for another week. And thank you all for coming. And as always, it was delightful to spend time with you all.
Same here.
Bye,
Adios.
everyone.
Good to see
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.